Hello, everybody, and welcome to Leads Geeks, the Zillow series. Today, we're going to talk about when you get a connection or a lead, a nurture lead or a live connection, and they say they have an agent. How do you approach that? Or somebody who doesn't want an agent for whatever reason, and are they valid reasons? A lot of times we see that, especially if they're calling in on a for sale by owner listing, and they were like, "Oh, I thought I was going to get the owner. I don't want to work with an agent. I just want to talk to the owner of this home." So to start this off, let's address those leads that say they already have an agent. So, Jim, why don't you tell us how you approach that?
Yes, I mean the way I approach it is basically, oh, you have an agent. Why are you looking on Zillow, or why aren't you talking to them? And that'll usually tell me, okay, do they have an agent, or is that an excuse? Or a lot of times what happens, especially in our areas, their agents at the lake for the weekend, and so it's really just having those conversations of, okay, have you signed any paperwork, or have you just been working with someone? Okay. Okay. Well, hey, your agent's going to be back. I mean, if you guys are under contract, I don't really want to step on any toes, but hey, do you mind if I check back with you in a couple of weeks just to see how things are going? And then really just try to be courteous with it. Or if they say, hey, well, I've been seeing some houses, but I don't have an agent. Okay. Well, what are you looking for in an agent? And really just trying to further that conversation.
Absolutely. And Cody, what input do you have? What's your go-to for when they say that they have an agent?
So my go-to is usually I'll ask them who they're working with. Because if they have an agent or they intend on working with an agent, usually they'll know the name. You can, I don't want to say sting because that's a negative word, but you can kind of catch people that way, by asking, hey, who are you working with? And if they say a name, usually we'll be positive about it because, it does happen, especially in our area, people's agents are in the lakes, or they're on vacation, or they're doing this or they're doing that, and they really just want to get inside that house. And that does happen. But yeah, that's my favorite question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if they do say a name, I'm working with so and so with XYZ brokerage, usually I try to gently direct them towards their agent and say, well, yeah, I don't want to step on any toes, so you should probably give them a call and they can set up the showing for you. But also, I don't want to waste my time giving them a whole bunch of home details for a listing that isn't ours if they're buying with an agent that isn't with our brokerage. So what about those calls where people say they don't have any interest in working with a buyer's agent? How do you approach those?
I mean, for me, I just ask why don't you want to work with an agent? Because a lot of times it's false assumptions, right? Well, I don't want to pay for one. Well, I'm not pre-qualified yet. I don't want to waste anyone's time, things like that. Simply just asking why half the time is going to really, it's not a deflection. It's really just people asking them a little bit more, and people tend to open up about it. And it lets you know. I mean, I think the best example is with you when you first started, took one of the Zillow calls and were like, oh, they didn't want to work with an agent. I was just like, well, why didn't they want to work with an agent, Eric? And there was like a 10-second pause, and you're like, looks like I'm going to go make a phone call. And he ended up getting the appointment because they just had false assumptions, right?
Right, and that was a case where they thought that as a buyer they would have to pay an agent, a couple $1,000s to help them find a home. And as we all know, that commission is paid out by whoever's selling the property. So, what other common things or common themes do you see with people who say that they don't want an agent? To Cody and Cody.
Go ahead, Spears.
Well, so far the big things that I've seen are just the people who, um, a lot of it has to do with their prior experience. So I don't want to work with an agent because the last three people that I've even spoke with were rude or they didn't pay attention to me. I actually just got off the phone right before this with someone who said I would not go back to the person that I previously had because she didn't do anything. So my big experience so far has just been, I don't want to work with someone because you're all the same, and that's this idea. Um, and so finding a way to bring that up to them to say, well, that we work in a different way. Ask them that question of, well, what are you looking for? Because they can tell you everything that went wrong. It's a lot harder for them to figure out what they want.
Absolutely. Cody Meyer, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I think Cody kind of hit on what I was going to talk about as well. In that, I always like to ask, well, what are your expectations? That is a surprisingly disarming question for a lot of people. I think that's just not a question we're used to hearing when it comes to service-related stuff. What is it that you want, and what are your expectations? Because allowing them to talk about what their expectations are and actually putting those on the table gives a lot of breathing room to that conversation, and kind of puts them at ease in knowing that, okay, you understand that I want a text at this time, and I want to be informed when, or I want this to happen, or I want that to happen. So that's always one of my favorite kind of disarming questions, if you will.
Absolutely. And you always want to meet those expectations that they have. I know I've chatted with people. Some of them are like, I want, texts every couple of days. I want them to send me the latest and greatest that's hitting the market, homes that haven't hit the market yet that they know about. And I've talked to people who are on the flip side of that, and they're like, I don't want an agent that's going to be texting and calling me every single day unless it's super important. And it just depends on the person and their personality type, and it varies from every person, so it's important to ask that question. But let's move on. What about those for sale by owner calls? I mean, we don't have too many for sale by owners in our market, but I know that there are a lot that are saturated with them. So what happens when they click contact an agent on Zillow and they're expecting to reach the homeowner who is selling the home, but instead they get Cody Meyer with Hatch Realty?
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think the conversation is that different a lot of the times. So what I've noticed is that, I get a call from Eric Hegg. He wants to look at 123 Main Street. It's FSBO. First and foremost, I see a lot of people who don't know their FSBOs, who will just call thinking they're going to connect with somebody, connect with a listing agent or, something like that. So that's always something to be cognizant of is they don't always know that they're FSBOs. For the people that do know their FSBOs, they'll always throw up the, oh, I thought this was going to put me through to the property owner. It's like, well, I can definitely help you navigate that. Why are you looking at this place? Why FSBOs? And then you kind of just slide into that other conversation of, I'm not pre-approved, or I don't want to work with realtors, or, any number of those objectives. And it just gives you a chance to kind of pivot the conversation to dive deeper on those and then bring it all back around in, the form of that home. So.
Absolutely. Jim, what's your input on that? How do you handle those calls when they come through?
I mean, pretty much the same. I mean, my only pushback is going back to a comment you made earlier, and I'm going to kind of tie that comment in with this group of leads from Zillow. Is a lot of people feel it's wasting your time because that person just wants to talk to the property owner. But I always try to come from service, because I know if I come from service, I'll get a better CSAT score. And ultimately, that's what I'm looking at is long term. I want to make sure that I'm providing some sort of value. So there's been times where I can't provide any value. There's not disclosure, things like that. And I'll simply literally give out that property owner's name and number, and then I'll follow up with them 3-4 days later. Some days even the next day, just to check in with them. I had a call yesterday with a person it was a FSBO, and she was just belligerent the first time she called. The second time she called through Zillow on a different FSBO, she was a little bit better, and I just asked the question, what can I do to help? Because this is the third place that we've talked about over the last year you've lost out on. Like, I'm going to send you a list of properties. This is everything that's available that you want that's not under contract right now. And that seemed to really diffuse her, and actually like, oh my gosh, you're actually trying to help. I'm not just a number to you. So that would be where I come from it.
Yeah, so the CSAT scores, they add a different element to these calls where you don't want someone to hang up while they're aggravated or, have a bad feeling towards you at all. So if they're like, hey, I'm just trying to get in touch with the property owner, I have an agent, but I don't want to use them, whatever the reason is, I'll actually go one step further and tell them how to find the property owner's number on Zillow. And I have never had a like bad review or something from doing that. And usually they're like, oh, thanks, this is going to make it a lot easier. So you can give them the for sale or the property owner's phone number, or do them one better and say, hey, if you're really looking at for sale by owner, check it out. If you scroll down on the right hand side, you'll see a list of agents, and then it'll say property owner, and you want to call that phone number. That'll go directly to the property owner's primary phone. And you can also go further if someone's looking for sale by owner only, and especially if it's like a lot or land, I tell them, hey, a lot of that is advertised on Craigslist or even Facebook Marketplace. Have you thought about checking those out? And those people, they might buy it on their own, but if they decide to go with a realtor, I want it to be me. I want them to come back to us. And that's playing that long game as well. So what else do we need to discuss that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, Cody, what are your guys' thoughts?
No, it sounded pretty good. I think we hit all the bullet points there.
Agreed. The big thing is just that value add that everyone's kind of touched on as well is huge.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be coming out with some other videos, and we'll role play those phone conversations. What do they actually look like? What are we actually saying to these people when they call in and they say that they have an agent, or they don't want to work with an agent, or they're looking for that property owner? So stay tuned, and as always, comment below with any questions, anything you'd like to see us cover. We would love to get your input. And from all of us over here at Leads Geeks, have a wonderful day.